The morning sky over downtown Chicago hung heavy with clouds, the kind that whispered of long-forgotten dreams and soaked sidewalks. The city pulsed with its usual rhythm, honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the distant wail of a siren. On the corner of Lexington and 12th, Rosa Daniels, wrapped in a faded coat 2 sizes too big, clutched a paper bag filled with a few bread rolls she had just bought from a bakery with her last $5. At 60, Rosa's eyes had grown tired but kind, holding the weight of stories untold. Life hadn't always been this hard. Once a beloved middle school teacher, she'd lost her home after her husband's long illness wiped out their savings. Now, she spent her days offering tutoring at a shelter and nights curled in a cot at the Women's Outreach Center. Yet, somehow, she still smiled at strangers and thanked the sky for each new dawn. Just as she stepped off the curb, a black Range Rover sped around the corner, too fast, too careless. With a loud splash, the car hit a deep puddle, sending a wave of muddy water directly onto Rosa. Her coat was soaked. Her bread ruined. Mud dripped from her sleeves as she froze, stunned, blinking back tears more from shock than pain. In the tinted window, Rosa saw a glimpse of the driver, elegant, distracted, phone in hand. Veronica Sterling, one of Chicago's wealthiest entrepreneurs, was too busy live-streaming her Monday Motivation segment to notice, or care, what she'd done. Never let negativity touch your soul, Veronica was saying to her thousands of followers. The irony stung. Rosa looked down at her ruined bag, then up at the sleek SUV disappearing into traffic. She could have screamed. Could have cursed the sky or chased the car. But instead, she stood tall, brushed a lock of wet hair from her face, and whispered to herself, "It's just mud. It'll dry." Then, with quiet dignity, she turned and walked away. Unaware that this very moment, born of indifference and pain, was the beginning of something unimaginable. 2 days had passed since the splash, and the city had already moved on. The skies had cleared, but Rosa's coat still bore the faint stains of that morning, though she didn't seem to mind. She had bigger things to focus on. Today was her weekly volunteer shift at St. Grace Rehabilitation Center, where she helped stroke patients with light reading and conversation. It was her quiet way of giving back. At the same time, across town, Veronica Sterling arrived at the same center, but for very different reasons. The lobby's marble floors reflected her designer heels as she stepped inside, flanked by her assistant and followed by a camera crew. She was there to tour the new wellness wing her company had funded. Donations made for good headlines, and even better investor confidence. As the tour wound down, a nurse poked her head into the lobby. "Excuse me, we're short on volunteers for our reading sessions today. Anyone willing to spare 20 minutes? The room was silent. Veronica, distracted and impatient, sighed dramatically. "Fine. I suppose I can be charitable." She was handed a children's book, The Little Oak That Could, and led down a quiet hallway. "Room 214, the nurse said. "The woman inside is recovering from a mild stroke. She's sweet, gentle, a joy to be around." Veronica barely heard her. She pushed open the door without knocking. Inside, sitting peacefully by the window in a borrowed sweater and her ever-present grace, was Rosa. The room fell still. Rosa looked up, surprised. Her eyes widened for the briefest moment, and then softened into a calm, kind smile. "You must be my reader today," she said gently. "Thank you for coming." Veronica froze, her hand tightening around the book. Her heart beat faster. She recognized Rosa instantly. That coat. Those eyes. That moment in the rain. But Rosa showed no anger. No trace of blame. Just a quiet warmth, as if she had chosen forgiveness before the apology ever came. Veronica swallowed hard, sat down slowly, and opened the book with trembling fingers, unaware that she had just walked into a moment that would alter her soul forever. She kept returning to St. Grace Rehabilitation Center, always claiming it was for PR, but deep down, she knew it was something else. She found herself drawn to room 214, to the quiet woman with tired hands and a voice that soothed like sunlight through glass. Every session began with a book, but always ended in conversation. And each time, Veronica discovered a new layer to Rosa Daniels, layers that humbled her. Rosa spoke about her students, the way their eyes lit up when they understood something for the first time. She mentioned the shelter she helped run on weekends, her belief that every child, no matter how poor, deserved to dream big. Veronica listened, really listened. For the first time in years. One afternoon, as Veronica brought a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, she finally confessed. "Rosa. I need to tell you something." Rosa looked up from the window, eyes soft but steady. Veronica hesitated. "That day in the rain, the car that splashed you, that was me. I didn't even notice you until I saw you here. Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." There was silence. Then Rosa reached over and gently placed her hand over Veronica's trembling one. "I know," Rosa said simply. You knew." Veronica whispered. "I saw your eyes through the window. I recognized you the moment you walked in," Rosa replied. "But I also saw something else, someone who's lost her way, not her heart." Tears welled in Veronica's eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her board, not her followers, not even her own family. "How can you be so kind? After what I did?" Rosa smiled faintly. "Because pain only wins if we pass it on. But if we break the cycle with kindness." Months later, the woman who had once carelessly splashed mud without looking back stood before a room full of people, executives, journalists, donors, all gathered for the launch of the Sterling Learning Foundation, a new initiative dedicated to providing education and mentorship for underprivileged youth across Chicago. Veronica Sterling looked almost unrecognizable, not because of her elegant dress or perfectly styled hair, but because of the peace in her eyes. Real peace. The kind that comes not from wealth, but from purpose. She took a breath, stepped up to the podium, and said, "Before we talk about numbers or plans, I need to introduce the reason this foundation exists. A woman who changed my life, not with money, but with mercy." From the side of the stage, Rosa Daniels walked slowly but gracefully to the center, greeted by a warm standing ovation. She wore a modest suit Veronica had gifted her, but still clutched the same tattered notebook she always used to jot down quotes, lessons, and ideas. "Ladies and gentlemen," Veronica continued, her voice trembling slightly, "this woman forgave me when I didn't deserve it. She showed me that kindness is not weakness, and humility is not loss. Because of her, I realized that success means nothing if it doesn't lift others." Rosa stood beside her, tears glistening in her eyes. When it was her turn to speak, Rosa said simply, "I was never looking for a spotlight. I only ever wanted to help someone else stand in it. Sometimes life splashes mud on you. But mud washes off. What stays is who you choose to be in that moment." The crowd was silent, moved. Veronica later appointed Rosa as the director of community programs, giving her the platform to shape real change. Rosa used it to bring books, mentorship, and second chances to those who needed them most, just like she once did. And as the city watched this unlikely bond unfold between a once broken millionaire and a once homeless teacher, something beautiful happened. Hope grew.